We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. I am currently in South Savannah, Georgia. I have a condo here, as you know. I'm currently in a building that's connected to the pool because I got people in my condo. I got my wife sleeping in one room, my son sleeping in another room, and I don't need to be bothered. So I walk down the road a little bit, go to this building, a beautiful building. I mean, you can see with the books behind me, I look very studious. This has got to be impressive for you. Usually it's a fucking couch. Now I got books. Anyway, yesterday was kind of a long day, long fucking day. We got up at 3:30 in the morning, left by 4 to get to the airport, and we got to be there by about 6:30. We wait there for a little bit, get on a plane, fly to Orlando from Minneapolis. It's about 3 hours or so. We get off there, we get a rental car, and then we drive back to Savannah about 4.5 hours. I feel like I've been on the fucking Oregon Trail, with no hardtack or salt beef, just fucking nothing, just riding hard all the way through. It was like a 12, 13-hour day en route to get to Savannah. You're probably saying to yourself, why the fuck didn't you just fly to Savannah? Well, I would, but the airline that my wife works for, where we get to fly free, I'll mind you, um, doesn't fly to Savannah between like November and April. So a lot of times we'll fly to Jacksonville if we still can do that. That's already ended, so we have to do it by way of Orlando. However, my wife says she's found some ways to get around that. Maybe we go through Nashville and then to Savannah next time we come down. But we had our son with us, so it's going to be all kinds of fucking juggling shit. You have to understand my son. It's weird. I don't even believe he's related to me. First of all, he's about 6'3". I'm not. He's a good looking kid. I was never accused of that when I was young, but he's very OCD about stuff. Like if you're leaving the house to go to the airport, he'll always say, you guys go out there, I'll meet you out there. Because he has a little procedure, a little ceremony he has to go through. I've watched him when I fall asleep on the couch and he leaves in the morning. Sometimes I'll see him check the lock on the door 3 times. I don't get that. I'm not like that at all. I shoot from the hip. I do whatever the fuck. If I know I locked the door, I don't check it again because I know better. Anyway, so when you're dealing with an adult child who's got some idiosyncrasies, it can get a little rough at times. Don't make any mistake. My wife and I, my 2 sons, are very close. Always have been very close. But because of the nature of our family, we give each other a shit a lot. Hence my granddaughter starting to give me shit too. It comes to her naturally by DNA. But you got the son and you got me and you got my wife who tends to be a little sensitive. It can get a little fucking crazy up in this shit. Fortunately, we were having a good time. It was a long day yesterday. We're going to be down here till the 9th. So we're going to relax a little bit and have some fun. Still have to do the TikTok, still have to do the podcast. Thankfully, I have this refuge, this building next to the pool that I can sit down and do the podcast. Now, I will say the audio should be similar to what you're used to hearing, but the video, it's not quite as good because the lighting sucks here. And I don't really have room to bring a bunch of lighting with me. I don't have that much lighting. So anyway, here we are. This is what we're doing. We're going to do the Rational Boomer podcast from Savannah, Georgia. We've done it before. It's nothing new. I got to figure out how to do the TikToks. I didn't do one TikTok yesterday. There wasn't a lot going on. And when did I have time? I'm either in a fucking plane or a car. Didn't have any time. And I don't like doing that. I usually like to keep up the consistency and the momentum, but I really had no options at that point. So anyway, we're settled in, get on track. I can get back on track with TikTok's podcast and all of that shit. So that's good news. We do have some things to talk about in spite of the fact that it's kind of slow in ramping up. That whole holiday period between Christmas and New Year's, not a lot goes on. And then when people come back, Takes a while for them to get acclimated and get back on track. Got a few things to talk about, but henceforth, I think we're going to see things um, building momentum, and we're going to see a lot of crazy shit over the next 6 months, all positively crazy shit. All right, we have some emails. Let's start out with the first one. Happy New Year, Boomer. Javier from South Texas. Well, 2024 is here. When do you think Jack Smith can put a handle on the Orange Supreme Court? I think this is really the biggest hurdle of the DOJ's way. Your thoughts, Javier? It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about the immunity thing, there's no chance the Supreme Court is going to side with Donald Trump with regards to that. There's a lot of people hitting up the Supreme Court, members of Congress, legal people, judges. There's no way they're going to give him immunity. It'll go through the um, appellate court. They're going to get together on the 9th. After that, shortly after that, they'll make a decision. Then it will go to the Supreme Court, and then that will be done. Donald Trump will lose a good portion of his defense tactics because he seems to think that he has immunity. He always has a good explanation for it. I mean, it's absolute bullshit, makes no goddamn sense, but typical Donald Trump. So that's going to happen fairly quickly. I think the ballot issue is going to happen fairly quickly too. It has to. I mean, at least with Colorado, they're going to be printing the ballots like in 3 days. So I wouldn't be surprised if they came back with something here saying they're going to take it up or they're not going to take it up. I don't think they're going to take it up and deny it. I mean, they could because of who they are, but the Supreme Court in Colorado did a very intelligent thing when they were making their case for their decision. They quoted Neil Gorsuch, a current Supreme Court member, who found in a way that would agree with them. Even Kavanaugh has made judgments that in agreement with the Colorado Supreme Court. So I'm not sure how it's going to take. They're going to take it up or what they're going to do with it. But I think in those two things, with respect to those two things, we will be looking at some fairly quick action. All right. You notice I'm drinking ginger ale. I do that when my stomach gets a little upset. And that doesn't happen too much, but when you're bouncing around like I have all day yesterday, I need something to settle my tummy. My grandma used to always give me Schweppes, ginger ale. And we know you got to listen to grandmas and grandpas. Now that I am one, I can appreciate the direction and insights I got from my grandparents. All right, the next email. Hey, Mike, just thought we already know how pathetic the imbecilic sheep of dirty diaper Donnie are, but how are they going to react when Judge Engoron announces the sanctions next week? It's going to become very obvious very quickly that the orange turd isn't worth anywhere near what he claims to be. Does this force his minions to wake up, or will they just find another ridiculous excuse for how the Dems are treating him? It should be interesting. Logic says they're going to have to accept that he's a lying piece of shit, but I would put the odds at less than 50% that they come to that realization. The thing that scares me most, though, all of this, I never realized how many people can be so willfully obtuse. Happy New Year, Paul. Honestly, Paul, I don't know if you'll ever convince the Trumplifucks, the base, if you will, that Donald Trump is not Jesus Christ. I don't know that you can convince them of that. But there's going to be a lot of people that will be convinced of it that are more moderate, more independent, whatever. And that's really all that it takes. People always tell me you're never going to change the minds of the Trumplifucks. I fucking know. I know I'm not changing the minds of the Trumplifucks. But we have to change the minds of enough people, or at least enlighten some people. They may have had inklings that this was going on, but we need to show them the proof and slap them in the face with it. So when it comes to election time, they're going to say, I ain't voting for that crazy, broke ass motherfucker. So, and there's another aspect of this that that you're not accounting for in your email, Paul. Um, a lot of people think that the important thing is to reveal Donald Trump to his base and cause them to go against him. Like I say, I don't know that that's likely. The biggest issue here for Donald Trump is his own mental well-being. His own insecurities pretty much drive his life. Donald Trump has thrived on the fact that he's rich and famous and has a lot of power and a lot of property. When it finally comes out that he does not have any of those things, and what he does have is going to be taken away from him, that's going to emotionally cripple him like you've never seen. Donald Trump doesn't know what to do when he can't bully his way out or bullshit his way out. And this is going to be one of those times it's going to be pretty apparent. I know he's going to say Judge Engeron is a Democratic operative and all that shit, but he keeps making these excuses. He's a lot like a middle school kid making outrageous excuses just to get out of something. Most reasonable people don't see it, don't believe it. And Donald Trump is going to be exposed for who he is. And you know what? Over and above what the base thinks, it's going to crush him. And that's really the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. All right, the next email. Hi, Mike. It seems that Vice President Harris has been kept in the background so far during Biden's administration because of Biden's age. I would think she would be looked at a little closer for the 2024 election. Do you know why the VP has been seemingly kept in the background? Was this strategy or poor media coverage? Was it planned this way? I'm curious to hear what you might think. Thank you, Joshua. Yeah, Joshua. I I don't think it's a strategy, because if it's a strategy, it's not a very fucking good one. Kamala is a pretty intelligent, articulate woman. She might lean a little farther left than Joe Biden, and that may be the problem the Biden administration has. I don't know that she'd be above calling out the Biden administration if they did something that she didn't like. That would be stupid to do, but people get heated and they say some shit. But I think you're absolutely right. Given Joe Biden's age, they should have been showcasing Kamala Harris a year ago. Get her in the public eye. She's got a lot of negative imagery about her, certainly from the Republicans. Democrats don't know much about her, so they assume she's doing nothing, which isn't true. But, people are dumb for the most part. And unless you slap them in the face with it, they don't know what the fuck is up. But anyway, I agree with you. They should have showcased her and spotlight her. I mean, if there are people that are worried that Joe Biden can make it through the next term, 24 to 28, but they want to vote for Democrats and they want to vote for Joe Biden, it would only make sense that you made them feel comfortable and confident in Kamala Harris. I think we can be. Personally, I've done a lot of investigation into her. I've listened to her a lot. When she was running against Biden for the primary in 2016, I liked her a lot. I probably liked her more than Biden just because she had the audacity and the courage to speak up, speak out, and push back, more so than Joe Biden did. But Joe Biden brought something to this that Kamala, nobody has, and that is decades of experience. And now that he's president, we're seeing the value in those decades of experience. I mean, he has a Republican Party and a House of Representatives that will do anything to own the libtards or own not Donald Trump, Joe Biden. But still, we have this budget issue that's coming up in a week or so that they have to come to some terms with, or they're going to shut down the country. They've done this a few times already. Joe Biden always wins. Joe Biden's smart enough to know what the deal is. As I say, he's very savvy about this shit. So he's the right guy to have. But he is old. And honestly, at 82 years old, when he wins the presidency or reelection in 2024, guy 82 years old could keel over at any time. Sorry if it's insensitive, but the facts is the facts. 82-year-old man can die at any point. And it wouldn't even be suspicious, just simply of old age. I mean, what's the um, average number of years the average man lives? I've heard it's like 75 or 76, which fucks me up because I'm going to be 64. You're telling me I only got 10 years left? I got to start fucking pedaling here. I got to get some more shit done. Anyway, you're right. I think that they should be showcasing Kamala Harris. I think they should make this country, at least the Democrats, comfortable with who she is and her capabilities and her aptitude. Personally, from what I know, um, if Joe Biden wins the presidency in 2024, something happens or he resigns and Kamala has to take over, I'm not the least bit worried. Not at all. I think she can handle it. And I think she would do a great job. And if she did, in fact, do a great job, it's ironic that she say Joe Biden said, I'm retiring in 2026. Kamala could take over. She would run the course of that term to 2028. She could run for president again, get another 4 years. And then after that 4 year term, she could run again. So theoretically, if Joe Biden stepped aside or somehow was not available after the first 2 years of the term that he'll currently be elected to, she could literally, if she kept winning re-election, she could be the president for 10 years. Can you imagine the heads of the Republicans exploding over a black woman with an attitude being the president of the United States? Oh, they would not handle that well. All right, the next email. Hi, Boomer. As you've said, 2024 is going to be a wild ass year. May I recommend to your listeners who still feel anxious that they consider turning off the cable news? And I say, as someone who doesn't advocate for a head in the sand approach. I used to consume MSNBC, some Morning Joe, maybe Andrea, and then always Nicole Wallace. Pretty good folks, right? But until you mentioned it, I hadn't really noticed how they tweak it for the maximum agitation. It's just not worth it. And they do that. Now, with the Boomer podcast fresh out of the oven, other select creators sprinkled through the day, and a dash of local news in the evening, I'm more informed and calmer. The other day, I sat down with yogurt and popped on MSNBC and couldn't even finish it before they were doing it again. Now, it's immediately obvious to me, fuck them. I turned it off and put on the Jack Benny show, Sans Guilt. Folks, even if Boomer and Soul don't calm you, please do consider flipping off the cable news. I'd be going out of my freaking mind about now if that was still my source. Best, Garage Door Jeff. And as always, he has a PS. Garage Door Jeff is the king of the afterthoughts. He says, P.S. I would note an exception for Rachel Maddow, who is, of course, so unique in her perspective that it's worth the risk. She's the old soul of cable news, or maybe Soul is the Rachel Maddow of Boomerville. I think that's an interesting comparison. I think it's a very good comparison. I mean, frankly, I like Rachel Maddow. I think she talks about facts. She doesn't get too crazy about the threats and the concerns and all that shit. But Jeff's absolutely right. I used to watch MSNBC. I watched CNN. I watched, what else did I watch? I read AP, NPR, Axios, a lot of different shit. I still do read a lot of different shit. But a lot of times I would have MSNBC in the background because that was the least objectionable news outlet. And I didn't have it on because I really cared what they were saying in depth. I was waiting for the stories to come out. If something hit a breaking news story, if you will, and I hate that fucking term because every channel you turn on, every time they open their mouth, it's breaking news, and that's just not fucking possible. That's why you'll never hear me use breaking news. A lot of TikTokers do. I won't do that. That's just my own little pet peeve. But I do that to get the news. If something big happens, they'll tell me. And then at that point, I stop listening and I go digging around and try to find out the true facts about what the fuck is up. But I think Jeff is right about this. I mean, a lot of people get caught up in this negative talk or this fear mongering. See, I don't. Because when I hear somebody say something, I think, yeah, well, I don't buy that. I'm going to find out what's different about it. Then I come here and I tell you what I know. But I understand this whole fear thing. I was watching my son and my wife today, and they're like a lot of people, and they think I'm weird, but I think they're fucking weird too. But these two are always concerned about the worst happening. They're always nervous or anxious about, well, if we do this, this could get fucked up. Or it could go great. It could go fucking great. But, and I sit there and I know better than to open my mouth when my wife and my kid are getting a little anxious about something. I just sit there and shake my head. I go, fuck, you're making your lives more difficult. And when you watch the TV news and you let yourself get worked up, maybe unnecessarily, you're putting yourself through shit you don't need to put yourself through. So I told you before, there's only so much as individuals we can control. There is absolutely no value in worrying about something we can't control. All we can do is the best we can do and keep doing it, be tenacious about it. And if the world is right and God is watching over us, it'll go our way. It's a little something people call faith. And when I say faith, I'm not talking about religion necessarily. I'm pretty confident that things will work out for the best. And people will say to me, that's not true. It doesn't always work out for the best for me. And I have a theory on that. The reason things don't work out the best for some people because it's their fault. If you trusted and had faith and just did what you're supposed to do, keep a calm mind and keep pushing forward, ultimately it would turn out the best for you. But if instead you freak out and try to change everything and do a bunch of different shit and go crazy and worry and cry and whine about it, yeah, it's going to get fucked up. I mean, I had a situation earlier today when we came to the condo we have. There's a gate that you have to get through, and it's a pretty simple thing. You punch in a 4-digit code. It then rings my phone. I hit the number 9. We go in. No big deal. When my wife gets anxious, she just reacts. She doesn't think about what she's doing. She just reacts. So she punches in the code. Nothing happens. Punches in the code again. Nothing happens. I said, honey, I know it works. We've done it many times. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm punching in the right code. I said, let me try it. So I get out of the car. I walk around, take a look if there's any problems or issues. I punch in my code. It rings my phone. I punch the button and we drive the fuck in. See what happened there? She was doing it to herself. She was nervous. She was upset. She was whatever. And she was fucking herself up by doing that. And my wife's a smart woman. I mean, she isn't overly anxious, but when those moments come around, you end up fucking yourself up more than the world at large or the universe. It's you because you're fucking your head up. You're getting nervous. You're reacting. You're doing things fast. Every time you get into a situation, try this. I learned this a long time ago, and it's hard to get in the practice of. Every time you have a stressful situation, every time you're worried about the outcome of something, slow everything down. Just slow. Stop, think, and then methodically do what you're supposed to do. Make sure you get it right the first time. Just do what you're supposed to do. And you know what? Most of the time, it works out pretty fucking good. So just relax. Don't get yourself all worked up about shit you don't need to get worked up about. Punching the buttons to the fucking gate to get in this place aren't a big deal. So what are you anxious about? Slow down, punch the numbers, do what I'm supposed to do. Next thing you know, you're inside the fucking gate. Now, I want you to understand, I'm not admonishing my wife or making fun of her. I know her personality. I know her nature. I know my son's nature. I know my other son's nature. I know just about everybody I fucking know fucks themselves up by being too anxious, too nervous, and too worried about failing. I'm convinced that's part of it. People are freaked out by the fact that they might be wrong or make the wrong choice. Now, in my head, I know I can make the wrong choice. I know I've had occasion to make the wrong choice, but you know what? Don't fucking care because it really doesn't matter. You make the wrong choice, you go, okay, that's not a personal attack on my intelligence. I mean, it might be for some people looking at me, but I'm not going to allow it. I'm not going to think that. I made the wrong choice. Okay, let me think. All right, well, I'll try this. And typically that works. People get too worried about what everybody else thinks, and they get too insecure about something that might make them look wrong or bad. When you can let yourself free of that, oh, fucking life is easier. Way fucking easier. Try it sometime. Now, people say, I can't do that. I was born this way. I'm going to do this forever. I've said this to you before, and if you weren't listening, listen again. Take a look at your life right now. Take a look at all the things you think, do, and believe. Think about all those things. None of that was embedded innately in your body at your birth. None of it. All of it is learned behavior from your parents, from your environment, from whatever. It's all learned behavior. So if you learned how to be how you are right now, theoretically, you should be able to learn enough to fucking change it. And you can. I know you can because I've done it. I've told the story many times. I'm a young man. I'm like every young man with more testosterone than intelligence. And when something goes wrong, I lose my shit. I throw shit. I yell. I scream. After doing that for a number of years, I realized, every time I do that, it all gets worse. I'm not fixing anything by throwing a tantrum. So consciously and rationally, I said to myself, well, if that isn't working to my benefit, maybe I should try something different. That's some of the best advice I ever got from somebody. If what you're doing isn't working, try something different. You'd be surprised how many people don't do something different. They will continue to do the same shit over and over and fail and fail and fail. Anyway, so when I got to that point, I rationalized out the fact that the way I was behaving was not working. I said, you know what? I'm going to force myself to stay cool. When I get in those situations where I would normally lose my shit, I'm going to stay calm. I'm going to slow things down. I'm going to look around and make some good choices. And we'll see if that makes it better. Guess what? It did. I didn't fuck up anymore or as much as I used to. And sure, it's hard to control yourself, to stay calm when you'd normally be freaking out. But trust me, you can fucking do it. All you have to do is put the effort in. And once you do it for a little while, you notice the positive results. It becomes second nature to you. Then after that, you become normalized to being calm and collected. Now, I'll tell you something else. If you have people that like to argue and they're always trying to suck you into an argument, yelling, screaming, ranting, raving, but you're not one of those people that are willing to get sucked into that, you stay calm and cool and you say the facts that you want to portray and speak your piece, but do it calmly and intelligently. Those people that yell and scream drives them fucking nuts. That's why I think it's so funny when I'll sit and talk to a Trumplefuck and he'll say something crazy. And I'll say, well, that's just not the fact. Here's the facts. And then they'll say to me, you're losing it. Oh, motherfucker, I'm fine. They thrive on you engaging with them at that level. It's kind of a primitive level, I guess, this yelling and screaming stuff. My son one time would do what he did. You know, he's a big guy and he'd be around the house and he'd get mad about something and throw something and suggest shit. Not to me. Fucker better not say that to me. He's bigger than me and younger than me. I still kick his ass. He knows it. This big old dumb tough motherfucker's never been in a fight in his life. That's what I told him. I said, dude, you think you're tough. You've never been in a fight in your life. And thank God for that. But if you'd ever been in a fight, you know size and strength doesn't always mean anything. And until you have somebody pounding on your face, you don't know what fucking tough is. So anyway, he's losing his shit one day. He's upset, not throwing stuff, but I think he would have liked to. And I said to him, look, buddy, what you're doing in your mind, you think this makes you look strong. Well, I am. I said, no, motherfucker, it makes you look weak. He says, how do you figure that? I said, you're this big, tough guy, and you can't even control your emotions. That is some weak ass shit. And he looked at me like, well, I know that makes some sense, but he wasn't going to give into it. So I have to stay on this kid whenever I see him. And if he gets in those positions, dude, don't be a weak ass bitch. Be a man, figure shit out, and then move on down the road. I think he's finally starting to get it, and I don't fault him for it. He's a young man. That's what young men do. They aren't the sharpest guys in the world because, well, they're all focused on themselves and they don't have a lot of life experience. Well, he's starting to get it now. My older son, I think, has got a hold of it. But I think it's good advice for everybody. And I just didn't make this stuff up. This is stuff that was handed down the line to me over the years. And I tried it and it fucking worked. It fucking worked. Like, people say, well, it wouldn't work for me. Yeah, it'll work for you. It will. You got to put some effort in. You got to be conscious of it. You got to use some rationality. Do what's best for you as opposed to what's worst for you. All right. We are going to take a quick break and we will be back right after this. We know the Republican Party is chocked full of pieces of shit. That goes without saying. I don't think I have to convince anybody of that. But it's important to understand that we, on the Democratic side, have our own pieces of shit, including one Senator, Bob Menendez. You'll remember that he was called out for some criminal, corrupt behavior, some bribery. Well, some new shit has come out lately. Federal prosecutors allege Senator Bob Menendez accepted race car tickets and other gifts from Qatar as part of a years long corruption scheme, with the Gulf nation joining Egypt as another foreign country the New Jersey Democrat is accused of helping while in office. You remember in the first round, he got some considerations, to say it in a nice way, from Egypt. And now they're suggesting more considerations in the form of racing tickets have come from Qatar. Now, let's be perfectly honest. This is just as bad, if not, well, I won't say worse, but just as bad as what Clarence Thomas is doing. If you're outraged by Clarence Thomas, you need to be outraged by Menendez, in spite of the fact that he is a Democrat. Now, prosecutors allege in the superseding indictment that Menendez's bribery and extortion scheme continued into 2023, a year longer than initially alleged. Now, the new indictment made public Tuesday amends and replaces the original indictment listing the formal charges against the defendant. Among the new allegations, according to the indictment, is that Menendez accepted payments from one of his co-conspirators, New Jersey real estate developer Fred Diebes, in exchange for using his influence to help Diebes obtain millions of dollars from an investment fund tied to Qatar. The senator prosecutors allege additionally took steps to help Qatar. In addition to the bribery charges, Menendez is accused of acting as a foreign agent for the government of Egypt by allegedly taking steps to help the country in exchange for one of the defendants obtaining a monopoly on a halal export business. Menendez has vigorously denied the wrongdoing. Well, of course he does. That's what fucking politicians do. Now, Menendez's attorney said in a statement Tuesday that the government does not have proof to back up any of the old or new allegations, but instead, a string of baseless assumptions and bizarre conjectures based on routine lawful contacts between a senator and his constituents of foreign officials. Is that why he did this before? This isn't the first or second time he's been caught for this corrupt shit. This corrupt shit he's doing all the way up through 2023, for God's sake, while he was under the gun. Yeah, this guy, excuse me, is a habitual criminal. And he thinks he's above everyone, that he can get away with anything. Now, the lawyer went on to say at all times, Senator Menendez acted entirely appropriately with respect to Qatar, Egypt, and many other countries he routinely interacts with. Attorney Adam Fees said in a statement, those interactions were always based on his professional judgment as to the best interest of the United States, because he is and always has been a patriot. So you're telling me that vacations, racing tickets, stuff like that, maybe cash, gold bars, that's all in the best interest of the United States of America? Pardon me if I don't buy that bullshit. The latest indictment only exposes the lengths to which these hostile prosecutors will go to poison the public before a trial even begins. But these new allegations don't change a thing, and their theories won't survive the scrutiny of court or a jury. Funny, we've heard that before, haven't we? We've heard that in the Judge Engeron case, the lawsuit against Donald Trump. We've heard it in appeals that Donald Trump has made. Menendez has taken a page out of Donald Trump's strategy package, and he should be smart enough to understand that that shit don't work. Nobody's buying the bullshit. Now, the latest indictment alleges Menendez introduced Diebes, who was seeking an investment, to a member of the Qatari royal family and a principal of the Qatari investment company, while the Qatari investment fund was weighing an investment. Menendez made multiple public statements supporting the government of Qatar, according to the indictment. So where's the part he was doing good for the United States? Sounds like he was doing a lot of good for himself and his buddies. I don't see how I gained over that. I'm an American. Where's my cut? Give me a taste of this deal, Menendez. Now, Menendez provided Daeebs with these statements so that Daeebs could share them with the Qatari investor and Qatari government officials associated with the Qatari investment company. Well, I got to tell you, if we're going to bitch about Republicans, we got to take this dumbass, slimy piece of shit Democrat to task too. Why he's still in office, I have no clue. He is a U.S. Senator. That's a pretty lofty perch for a guy who's little more than a fucking criminal. I don't know what they're going to do with this guy, but they need to get him on trial quickly, get this thing resolved, get him convicted, and get him the fuck out. Now, you'll remember that the state of Maine was the second state to announce they were taking Donald Trump off the ballot for the 2024 election. It'll come as no surprise that Donald Trump on Tuesday reportedly filed an appeal in which the former president challenges the state of Maine's decision to bar him from the president for having engaged in insurrection against the United States. Trump, who has faced semi-successful ballot removal efforts in Maine and Colorado, hopes to reverse a removal that experts say could actually affect him in a general election. The appeal is widely expected, according to local news reports. And it's a little different in Maine. It doesn't go to the Supreme Court. This decision was made by the Secretary of State. So next it goes to the Superior Court in Maine. Donald Trump will lose. Then it will go to the Maine Supreme Court, where it will lose. And then it's a matter of whether or not it even has to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. We're still waiting on an answer of what's going to happen with the U.S. Supreme Court with regards to the Colorado Supreme Court. And depending on what they say, it may not be necessary. There may not be an option to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Trump's campaign filed the appeal in a major challenge to the decision by Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows, according to the Lewiston Sun Journal. A clerk in Kennebec County Superior Court confirmed late Tuesday afternoon that the campaign filed a formal appeal. Clerk said a judge was reviewing the filing and a copy was not immediately available. A clerk in Kennebec County Superior Court confirmed late Tuesday afternoon that this went down. And this is not a surprise at all. We were expecting him to appeal it. I mean, that's what Donald Trump does. There's two things you can know for sure. If he's going to court, Donald Trump will lose. That's a given. And then Donald Trump will appeal. And that's a given. And then Donald Trump will lose and he will appeal again and he will lose and he will appeal again, accomplishing nothing more than wasting time. But I think the judges are getting a sense of what's going on and what he's trying to pull. Oh, really? Just now you're getting that? Come on, motherfucker. That's been his practice since he went into business. We are not learning anything new about Donald Trump. He is who he is. I don't know how it's going to end up with the Supreme Court. I have this feeling that the Supreme Court is either going to say, no, we don't want to touch it, or agree with the Colorado Supreme Court. I just don't see how they're going to side with Donald Trump. I don't get it. We'll see what happens, but I don't see how that's possible. All right, Washington, D.C. Attorney General Brian L. Schwalb sent a letter to Reps James Comer and Jim Jordan on Tuesday that said he won't be cooperating with their investigations into conspiracy theories about a far-right judicial activist. After thoughtful consideration, I must reiterate that I stated in my prior correspondence on November 13th, 2023, our office has a long-standing policy consistent with the policies of law enforcement agencies across the country, not to confirm, deny, or otherwise comment on potential or pending investigations. The lawmakers sought confirmation of and documents related to a report effort to investigate Leonard Leo and a certain nonprofit organization which he is affiliated. You don't know who Leonard Leo is. Well, Leonard is a buddy of Ginny Thomas and a lot of judges. Leonard Leo is basically a Supreme Court justice pimp or sugar daddy. Not really the sugar daddy, maybe a little bit, but basically he's the one that is in charge of a couple of things: picking and choosing the actual candidates for federal judge and Supreme Court judges. Oh, you thought the Republicans were doing that or that Donald Trump did that? No, Leonard Leo fucking does that. Leonard Leo is also responsible for putting billionaires and Supreme Court justices together. This is a shady motherfucker and he needs to be looked into. And the fact that they're trying to stop that is really kind of suspicious, don't you think? Schwab explained that refusing to confirm or deny anything preserves the integrity of the investigation. Nothing in your latest letter sets forth a pervasive or persuasive reason for deviating from that principled, well-established policy. So he's basically telling Jim Jordan and Commerce to suck a bag of dicks. That's pretty much what he's saying. He also explained that Congress typically doesn't request any information from federal, state, or local law enforcement from potential or pending investigations. The approach that Congress uses typically recognizes that such inquiries inescapably create the risk that public and courts will be perceived undue political and congressional influence over law enforcement and litigation decisions. And that's absolutely true. The fact that Jim Jordan and Comers is doing this is really pretty ridiculous, borderline unethical, if not in fact unethical. And how well has it worked for him? Told Alvin Bragg, "We want to see you down here. We want the documents." Alvin Bragg said, "Suck it." Fonnie Willis, they told her, "We want to see you. We want the documents." Fonnie Willis told them to suck it. And what did they do in response? They did absolutely fucking nothing because they have nothing. It's not their jurisdiction. They know it's not their jurisdiction, but they're trying to intimidate. And they're not doing it because they think these people will bend to it. They're doing it to make Donald Trump think they're doing something. "Oh, Donnie, we tried. Didn't work, but we tried. That was a brilliant idea, Donnie. We tried to get him to come down, but there's nothing we can do now." Schwab went on to say Congress doesn't have unlimited powers to investigate whoever it wants, citing the Supreme Court. Your December 18th letter does not recognize OAG's legitimate law enforcement interest, nor does it identify a valid, detailed, and substantial legislative purpose for your inquiry. He wrote, moreover, none of the cases cited in your letter support diverging from the legislative branch's longstanding practice of eschewing interference in potential or pending law enforcement investigations. So again, in not so many words, suck a bag of dicks. All right. The judge is tasked with the rule, or tasked, Tasked, not Taxed, tasked with ruling on Donald Trump's immunity claims, have warned both the former president and special counsel Jack Smith to be prepared to discuss discrete issues raised in past filing court records show. I don't think Jack's going to have a problem with it, but I bet Donnie does. The U.S. Court of Appeals D.C. Circuit Tuesday told lawyers on both teams they should be ready by January 9th to present oral arguments on issues raised in amicus briefs or information provided by supporting groups. While it remains unclear what those discrete issues may be, amicus briefs have come in from high-ranking Republican attorneys who served in Trump's White House and even legal watchdog group challenging the D.C. court's jurisdiction to rule on presidential immunity. In mid-December, a group of Republican lawmakers, including Deputy Attorney General Donald Ayer and former Justice Department official Barbara Comstock, filed an amicus briefing backing Smith's claim that there is no legal precedent for blanket presidential immunity. And remember, this is coming up January 9th. The conservatives, citing media reports that Trump considering deploying the military to overturn the 2020 election, argued establishing an immunity precedent would leave the White House vulnerable to hostile takeovers. These terrifying possibilities are real, the brief states, not remote. Yeah, they're going to talk about some uncomfortable shit. And that uncomfortable shit is going to be on Donnie's side. Make no mistake, Jack Smith knows exactly what to expect, knows what's up, has a strategy, and has an answer for every question. Now, Donnie will have an answer for every question, and so will his lawyers, except they'll be completely fucking bizarre. All right. Fresh off filing for bankruptcy, Rudy Giuliani kicked off the new year by demanding money from his backers. Yeah, somebody ought to tell Rudy, you're not really in a position to demand much. You have no more power. Giuliani made a plea to his fan base to pay him a 10 spot Monday when he launched a new show, America's Mayor Confidential. Don't forget to subscribe, Giuliani said on his other show, America's Mayor Live. Then he added, and $10. Giuliani also spread the word directly on X, but the message appears not to have gone according to plan. He said, do yourself and me a big favor and join our premier program, America's Mayor Confidential, so we become a close-knit team for 2024. According to what Giuliani wrote, go to at Rudy Giuliani on X and subscribe for $10 per month so we can be an army by mid next year. Yeah, you do that. Candy Can 3-1 responded, Rudy, it's showing your account is suspended. That would be awesome if Rudy's account was suspended. Monday's show features a wow, man, that's been a long day yesterday. He was wearing fucking glasses, okay? Giuliani sitting behind a microphone discussing previous GOP debate highlights, propping up Trump, alleging President Joe Biden corruption. You know, all the same shit. Iran's going to have to decide if they're going to make their big move before Mr. Appeasement is out of office, he said during the January 1st show. The figure once lauded as America's mayor for his about-face response to the 9/11 terrorist attack is reporting debts of up to $500 million on assets that total no more than $10 million. Yeah, I would say he's a little upside down there, wouldn't you? Days after a jury ordered Giuliani to pay Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss $148 million in defamation damages, the mother and daughter again asked the court to sanction him. Giuliani alleged the pair had helped rig the vote for President Joe Biden by passing USB drives like vials of heroin or cocaine during the ballot counting in Fulton County, Georgia. Well, of course, none of that fucking happened. Rudy gets sued, and the dumb motherfucker loses. Now, there are some people calling for Donald Trump to be put in jail for his harassment of his accusers. This was put out by a former prosecutor. Donald Trump should be jailed for sending an ominous signal to his supporters to target the Maine Secretary of State who kicked him off the state's ballot. Now, Trump last week posted a link to the bio page of top election official Shenna Bellows the day after she ruled the Constitution's 14th Amendment disqualified the former president from appearing on the ballot. And legal expert Glenn Kirshner said it was clearly a signal to his supporters to carry out action against her. Soon after Trump shared the link to Bellow's page on the official Maine government website, she told CNN she started receiving threatening communications. Then on Friday, her home was the target of swatting, a false emergency call that sent a SWAT team to her home. Yeah, this is becoming an epidemic. Democrats and Republicans alike are all getting swatted. The only person that should get swatted, literally, is Donald Trump. That motherfucker should have been swatted when he was 2 years old, and maybe he would have grown up to be an adult as opposed to a fucking ignorant man child. Now, speaking on his Justice Matters YouTube channel, Kirshner referenced similar attacks Trump has made to prosecutors, officials, and other families, resulting on him being hit with several gag orders. How many times are we going to watch this movie? He said. His comments were also reported on Newsweek. Yeah. Donnie is out there working it and putting everybody he doesn't like or doesn't like him in danger. That shit's got to stop. I've said this before. The faster you can get him out of the narrative, out of the equation, the better and safer this country will be. The better and safer innocent individuals will be. But for whatever reason, they've been unwilling to do that. I don't know what Donald Trump has to do to commit a crime to be held accountable, but I'm hoping we're getting closer now because it's about fucking time. Right wing podcast host Steve Bannon, that slimy, greasy looking piece of shit, called for former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson to be jailed over her testimony to the January 6th committee. You see where they're at now? Somebody comes out and tells the truth. The one person that comes out and tells the truth, and that is a bridge too far for the Trumplefucks. They can't say she's wrong, but we should put her in jail nonetheless because she had the audacity to speak against Donald Trump and the Trumplefucks. Sorry, Steve, that's not how it's happening. In fact, you're going to be going to jail before Cassidy Hutchinson even drives by a prison. Bannon, who helped plot an attempted overthrow to the 2020 election, made the remarks on his War Room broadcast on Tuesday during an interview with conservative author Julie Kelly. Kelly argued that Republicans should be doing more to investigate the January 6th committee. Oh, you mean like you're investigating Joe Biden coming up with absolutely fucking nothing? Is that what you're talking about? We need our own committee, Bannon said. No, it's not enough. Now, Steve, you're a sorry piece of shit who's going to jail anyway, so the fuck. Republicans should have come out and said, hey, this is not acceptable, he continued. It's called having a set of stones. Yeah, let's appeal that. Let's delay it. Let's distract. I know I'm guilty, but let's delay this motherfucker. You have the audacity to suggest somebody should have a set of stones? Steve, you're the most chicken shit motherfucker I've ever seen. You're sitting out here whining and crying, and you're going to jail, motherfucker. And people are saying, yeah, he's going to jail for contempt of Congress eventually here, and that might be a few months. I'm not just talking about that. Did you hear what it said earlier on in that story? He was one of the people that helped plan the insurrection on January 6th. You don't think Jack Smith is coming after Steve Bannon? Oh, I think he is. I think he's at the top of the motherfucking list. The conversation triggered Bannon to lash out at Hutchinson over her testimony damning former President Donald Trump. Given Cassie Hutchinson's bald faced perjury, and she should go to jail for a long time, he exclaimed. That's how important it is. They think if they talk loud and they speak in inflammatory ways, that people will believe them. Well, Steve Bannon, there's nothing about you that's believable. You've been a con man and a thief all your fucking life. And since Donald Trump has been president, you have been the worst among them. He goes on to say, you're not going to be able to stand up there and lie about a guy in the middle of a fight for the control of the country. Young lady, Bannon added, you're not going to be able to change your testimony. We got tape. Okay. Well, let's see the motherfucking tape. We keep hearing about evidence. Rudy's got evidence. Comer's got evidence. McCarthy's got evidence. Everybody's got evidence. Mike Lindell's got evidence. Nobody ever sees the motherfucking evidence. Show us the evidence, and then we'll tell you what we think. Now, of course, Bannon was convicted of contempt of Congress for refusing to talk to the January 6th Select Committee. He is appealed after being sentenced to 4 months in prison. Hutchinson told ABC that Trump's second term would be a danger to the U.S. democracy if he wins the presidency. And that's what bothers Steve Bannon more than anything, is that Cassidy represents a lot of damage to Donald Trump and those fucks around him. She was there. She saw it. She heard it. She's reporting it truthfully. And that's the one thing Trump fucks hate: truth, facts, and the law, especially when it applies to them. The fact that he feels that he needs to lean into being a dictator alone shows that he's weak and a feeble man. And this is Cassidy Hutchinson, who has no sense of character and integrity and has no sense of leadership, she said. And this is true. Everything Cassidy Hutchinson said right there is absolutely true. Why would we not believe her about anything else? Now, in spite of all that's going on with Donnie Trump, all the troubles he's got going, he's still planning and scheming. He's got some motherfucking ideas. Former President Donald Trump claims he will make a heavy play for states typically won by Democrats if he wins the Republican presidential primary. Oh, he's got a plan to get the Democrats to all of a sudden be stupid and forget about all the treason and criminality and vote for him. I gotta fucking hear this. Trump told Breitbart News that he would target states like New York, even though it could be a waste of resources. One of the other things I'm going to do, and I may be foolish in doing it, is I'm going to make a heavy play for New York, heavy play for New Jersey, heavy play for Virginia, heavy play for New Mexico, and a heavy play for a state that hasn't been won in years, Minnesota, my home state. Well, good luck with that, motherfucker. As long as I'm alive, you're not going to win Minnesota. I'll get so fucking obnoxious people will vote for Biden just to shut me up. Now, here's the interesting thing: I'm going to make a big play, a heavy play. What are you going to do? Why didn't you do that in 2020? What are you going to do? See, this is it. He's trying to scare people. Oh, he's got tricks up his sleeve. He's got no tricks up his sleeve. He's not playing 3D chess. He's playing fucking Candyland, and the motherfucker's losing. I'd like to get Donnie into a brisk game of Uncle Wiggily. I bet I could kick his ass. I left New York 8 years ago, he reportedly said. We had already suffered from de Blasio a little bit, but it hadn't been long enough. He was a horrible mayor. He was the worst mayor in the history of New York. We are suffering from de Blasio a little bit, but it was 8 years ago when I left. And when I left, it was the hottest thing. What did he just fucking say? I don't know. Now, you look at it and what they've done to that beautiful place, it's just absolutely horrible. So I think I have a chance there. I will spend time, and I would normally not be working on New York or New Jersey or other places. Yeah, Donnie, you are going to be spending some time in New York, but not campaigning. You're going to be spending time trying to appeal the lawsuit brought by Letitia James. You're going to spend time in New York dealing with Alvin Bragg's 32 felony charges against you. Yeah, you're going to be there. Maybe on the breaks or at lunch or something, you can go out and campaign. Hit that bitch hard because you're going to win New York. Shut up, you dumb motherfucker. Donald Trump couldn't win shit. He is going to be so embarrassed on 2024 November election that it's going to make your head spin. It really honestly will. I hope parts of me hope Donald Trump is the nominee because he will get absolutely fucking destroyed. More importantly, though, we need to get our country back to some normality, get things back on the right track. And if in the process between now and November 2024, Donald Trump gets waylaid, is no longer a nominee, I'm cool with that too. And I think that's more than likely than him being the nominee. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast from Savannah. I'll be here for the next week or so. So there'll be a lot more of what you're seeing here with the podcast, the books, the shitty lighting, and whatever. But we'll make do. We'll get it done one way or another. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.